Hello and welcome to Today in the News on Vanguard Live. I am Precious Tripodi. Of course, we begin with the front pages of the papers this morning, starting off with Vanguard newspaper. Vanguard is leading with polls. Tinubu lashes out as Atiku leads protest in INEC. To INEC, the writer says, your integrity on trial. PDP tells INEC says the chairman's action utterances deceitful as Atiku IU lead protest march in Abuja. Respect your age. Stop causing gridlock on Abuja streets. Tinubu warns Atiku. Says PDP's protest to INEC headquarters new law of absurdity. We have no allegiance to any party, INEC tells protesters. And we can see a story showing Atiku leads PDP protest to INEC headquarters. Presidential polls, INEC seeks a variation of inspection order against Obi Atiku. NMPP, Kanu government bicker over plot to disrupt Cuba election. On sport, we have the Gambia dumb flying eagles out. On health, we have IVF doesn't always lead to multiple births. And stories above, gunmen kill pastor, two sons in Plateau. Naira Re-design, banks obey Supreme Court, pay old notes. CSO orders kicks as a rep majority leader Dogowa gets bail. And lastly, on the front page of Vanguard newspaper, we have we need 869 billion naira to conduct census, and that's coming from the federal government. All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with Naira's scarcity lingers despite Supreme Court's judgment. The writer says no cash at banking hall, ATM points, bank awaits CBN's directive on old notes. Stories above INEC to reconfigure beavers for governorship assembly elections. CBN tackles IMF's claim on Anchor Borrowers loan. 98 senator elects 325 rep elects to get a COR today. And APC PDP clash over presidential poll results. Olanik Bekun 49 orders to defend Tinubu's mandate. All right, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with article leads supporters to INEC threatens daily protests. The writer says INEC owes allegiance to Nigeria, not any political party, says Okoye. Retire from politics, go to Dubai, stop embarrassing yourself. Tinubu tells Atiku. Stories above imperative to prosecute election offenders and violators. You can see that, and as an editorial on page 2. Uncertainty over next week election as INEC seeks to reconfigure beavers. Senate President APC tips Southeast. Lawyers demand income expenditure details to INEC on electoral process. Waiting game as lawyers argue CBN's compliance with Supreme Court verdict. Diphtheria kills 61,783 others, 61 rather, 783 others hospitalized in Kano. All right, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with Supreme Court order on old notes. Banks in partial compliance begin skeletal circulation. The writer says a few banks pay old 500 naira, 1,000 naira on Monday. Others await directive as Emefiele keeps mum. Most ATMs remain dry. Skeptical banks, customers, traders reject old notes from banks. On page 5, Whitney, Chrisland seeks autopsy review. Inquest begins April 4th. 50 feared killed. Suspected headsmen invade Benue community. 203 hoodlums arrested during presidential polls, and that's coming from the police. Stories above. Don't handle education like Buhari, ASU tells Tinubu. Government seeks a 322 billion naira donor funding for census. Article vows to extend protest, demands result cancellation. And lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, we have INEC challenges Article Obi's suit on beavers. And that's what we can take on the front pages of the papers. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We're just joining still today in the news on Vanguard Live. I am Precious Chukudi. Joining me to talk about some of the stories on the front pages of the papers this morning is Mr. Daya Akintobi, publisher of Liquid Today, KJ Today, and Lekki Today. Good to have you join me this morning.
Good morning, Precious. Good morning to all our viewers.
All right, so let's delve in. And of course, we're still talking about the presidential elections. And, yesterday the PDP staged a protest at INEC's headquarters at Abuja. And they're challenging INEC and saying that they didn't keep their promises to Nigerians. And what they promised Nigerians is completely different from what they received. That's the last election on February 25th. And the president-elect has also responded by saying that stop protesting, just go to court. I mean, that's where you're going to get answers to your grievances and all that. What's your take on this one?
Well, uh, protest is part of democracy. The right to dissent, the right to not agree, and the right to express your grievance through protest. The key thing about protesting or dissenting is that your expressions should be peaceful and non-violent. As long as you have a peaceful protest, it is within your democratic right. Yes, PDP is an aggrieved party in this instance. They've said a lot of things about why they feel the elections were not properly conducted, and they're simply expressing their democratic right to not agree. So I don't see anything wrong with the protest they had yesterday, especially in light of the fact that it was orderly and it was peaceful. They've said they're going to protest every day until INEC recognizes their grievance and does something about it. But the point is that even though they're going to court, that doesn't stop them from expressing their pain through peaceful protest. And I think the president-elect, when he lashed out yesterday at Atiku, I think that was hitting below the belt. I don't think it was becoming of him as the president-elect, because first of all, as our president in waiting, he's got to recognize the democratic right of each and every single individual. I don't think it was proper of him to have lambasted Atiku for exercising his democratic right. Also, the president-elect must remember that he's no longer an aspirant, he's no longer a contestant, he's now president-elect. He's effectively a heartbeat away from being the father of the nation. So what that means is that he's got to conduct himself like an elder statesman. Like he's got to have a lot of statesmanship. And part of doing that is in how you show maturity in situations. Even if internally he's not happy that Atiku is going out there and protesting, he's got to be measured in the things he says or does as the president-elect. I don't think it was in keeping with core democratic principles for him to have objected to Atiku's exercising his democratic rights.
All right. Of course, there's this saying that when a person says, go to court, it means that they have their brother as the
As the
judge.
judge.
Exactly. We can't close our eyes to the fact that Nigerians feel gaslighted with this whole go to court speech, especially because of what they saw happened February 25th election. What do you think about it?
When you consider the fact that, the Supreme Court in Imo State in 2019 made somebody who came forth, the governor, on technicalities. It means that the courts can do anything they want, essentially, and they will always find some law to anchor their decisions on. So if there's a trust deficit among Nigerians towards the judiciary, they don't have faith in the fact that the judiciary is delivering honest, straightforward, and just rulings. And so when they hear somebody saying, go to court, go and challenge me in court, go and take up if you are not happy, Nigerians don't have much faith in the fact that going to court will get you justice. I mean, they say the court is the last hope of the common man, but we've seen many instances where there have been miscarriages of justice to where the fidelity of court decisions in cases that people are really aggrieved. There's a lot of doubts about the sanctity of court pronouncements. So when they see somebody say, go to court, go to court, go to court, that's where you need, it makes them begin to suspect that this person already knows that if you take him to court, he's going to win. And if he does know that, how does he know? Is it that the judges are in his pocket? Is it that he knows his law and knows he's standing on solid ground? What is it that gives him the confidence to be able to dismiss you by saying, go to court and go and get your judgment there? So the point is, there are many different ways to express your democratic rights. So yes, you go to court is one of them, but the court of the judiciary is one court. There's also court of public opinion, which is what Atiku was playing to yesterday, was to try and get the public, win the public sympathy. Because if you win in the court of public opinion, it might influence the way the court in the judiciary is going to make its judgment. And so, you have all these different moral suasion, all these different elements that you can appeal to in terms of advocating your case.
All right, so let's move on and talk about this one. Now, INEC has approached the Court of Appeal to vary the order it granted Labour Party and PDP to allow them to inspect sensitive materials used for the presidential election. What do you think about this?
Well, the court granted an injunction that they must not, they should allow the Labour Party candidate and the PDP candidate to inspect the BVAS machines. That's because that is evidence. It is within those machines that you can find evidence of wrongdoing. So those two people want to protect the evidence from being tampered with, from being deleted, from being altered, because that their whole case may hinge on the data that is reposed inside those machines. So they've gone to court to say, look, we want to inspect those machines and we want to look at the numbers and the data, the raw data that is sequestered in those machines. So INEC is now saying, but we need to use those machines for the governorship election and state houses of assembly this Saturday. To use those machines, we need to reconfigure. What does reconfigure mean? It means that at the moment, those machines were structured in a way to capture data from presidential, Senate, and House of Rep. And that data is in those machines. So to be able to get it ready for the governorship and the state houses of assembly, you have to reprogram them. So the fear, and why there's a lot of hoopla about this, the fear is that in the process of reprogramming them for the new election, the data might be deleted. The evidence that Labour Party and PDP to get might be deleted, might be altered, but my sense, and I'm not an IT person, but my sense is that whatever data is in there already is backed up somewhere. It's backed up, it's stored, it's saved, and even if they reconfigure them, what is stored already where it is stored. So all these things are backed up to a server that's offsite somewhere, probably in Israel, might not even be in Nigeria. So the data is protected. I don't think it will disappear because they reconfigure the machine. I don't think it can be altered. Even if it's altered in the machine, the backup copy is somewhere, and that has integrity.
Oh, but the problem is INEC isn't coming out to say that, oh, there's the backup somewhere, so don't fret. You have all the information and database and whatever you have, just to find. They're just telling us that they want to reconfigure.
It's not everything government can tell people, because there are certain things that need to be confidential because of risk of sabotage.
But people don't trust INEC now.
Well, you see, there's also the risk of hackers as well. Remember that part of what is suspected may have gone wrong in these elections, that probably some people were able to hack through the system and begin to play with the numbers. So the thing is, information is released by government on what they call on a need to know basis. They tell you only what you need to do, what you need to know, and no more. So in this case, what you need to know is we need to reconfigure the machine. They're not even telling us, the public, really, they're telling the court. If not for this whole issue about BVAS, we would never even know that there was any such thing as reconfigure, would we? We wouldn't know. We would just know that we used it last Saturday for the presidential. We want to go to governorship this Saturday, and it's there for us to use again. We won't know they did anything to it, really. So it doesn't really concern us. It's a technical aspect of the voting process that is subject to internal manipulation. It really has nothing to do with the end user, those of us who are going to go and vote. But because it's become a public issue, right? Because it's become a legal issue to where people have gone to court. That's how it has come to the court of public opinion. But it doesn't change the fact that INEC and other government agencies need to protect some of their proprietary information that, you know, perhaps you might be right that INEC is not communicating well with the public. I don't dispute that. I think that their public relations is poor. I don't think they've done a good job of information dissemination and assurance. I think maybe they were caught a bit flat-footed because remember the confidence with which they assured Nigerians that this technology would work. We are anchoring our whole electoral prospects on this, and the thing failed. So it left them destabilized.
All right, I would like you to hold your tongue because we'll come back to actually talk about that more.
Okay,
but let's just take a look at this one.
Okay.
And that's concerning the Supreme Court's ruling that we can now have access to our old notes and all of that. But then, as of yesterday, we had banks that were still saying they were waiting for CBN's directives before they would go ahead. But today, we got a new information saying that some banks have started to pay their customers in the old 500 and 1,000 naira notes. What do you think about this situation?
Well, you see, the CBN is the regulator of the banks. The Supreme Court, of course, is the highest law in the country. So some of the banks will hide under the fact that this do, and they will say until the CBN tells us what to do, we don't have authority to say we read the Supreme Court's decision in the newspaper and we're acting upon that. CBN must give them a directive. Do you understand? Because even the banks that are giving out the notes now, right, they don't have anything written. The Supreme Court did not write to them directly to say, start passing out these old notes. They just read it in the newspaper like you and I read it in the newspaper. So they're taking a risk that the CBN can sanction them that we as your regulator have not told you to do this yet. Why are you doing this? However, the key part, the linchpin of this whole thing is that the CBN should obey the Supreme Court's law. Then we won't have this issue. If the CBN does the right thing and looks at it and says, the Supreme Court is the supreme law in the country and their ruling is inviolable. They look at that and they say, then they do the right thing. Then they are the ones who are supposed to instruct the banks. That's why you see many are not paying. The thing is, the money that's been returned to CBN, that one is not coming back again. The money that you see the few banks that are giving out, those are the ones they still have in their vaults from people who returned them during the extension. So they have various quantities in their vaults. Not a whole lot, that's the truth, but they have some. So some of them have said, look, our customers matter more than our regulator, right? And they've gone ahead and started giving them out. Because up to now, the CBN hasn't said a word about the court ruling. I figure because the ruling came out on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, no work. Yesterday morning was the first day back at work. So CBN is looking at the judgment, trying to issue its directive. So I think today, hopefully, we'll begin to see some movement from the CBN to instruct its subscriber, the deposit money banks, to begin to pay out this thing. So we should now be able to see more and more banks falling in line.
All right, so let's take a look at Mr. and Mrs. And Mrs. is speaking this one. He says, what I'm saying is that the digital counter on the microwave oven says 10 big steaks were grilled, but I only found 6 microwave oven as Beaver's machine. Okay, go to court.
And of course, the Beavers will fail. It will fail to upload the results. So, 4 steaks are missing. Go to court and prove your case.
All right, so that's all we can take for now. But stick with us as we'll be coming back for Nigerian Decides 2023. And for you to find out up-to-date information, you can go to our website, www.vanguardindia.com, and also our social media handles are displayed on your screen. I am Precious Chukudi. Thank you so much. We'll be back, and thank you for